My young apprentice, seeking inspiration not from inherited empires, but from those who clawed their way upward from the bottom of the mountain, listen closely. For the story of financial celebrities who began with nothing is not a tale of luck. It is a chronicle of grit, clarity, obsession, and an unbreakable refusal to bow before circumstance. The world often worships the wealthy as if they were born chosen, yet many of the greatest financial titans began in places so barren, so unforgiving, that their ascent feels almost mythic. To study them is to study the raw ingredients of self-made greatness. Their journeys teach you that wealth is not born in bank accounts, it is born in the spine, in the will, in the relentless defiance of limitations. Let us begin with George Soros, whose early life feels carved from stone and shadow. Born in Hungary under Nazi occupation, he survived persecution, escaped political violence, worked menial jobs in London, and studied at the London School of Economics while barely affording food. He lived not with comfort but with hunger, both literal and intellectual. His rise from penniless immigrant to one of the most influential investors in history carries a lesson few dare to internalize. The mind that is forged in hardship becomes sharper than steel. Soros did not flee adversity. He metabolized it into vision. Now, turn your gaze to Ray Dalio, founder of the world's largest hedge fund. His beginnings were modest, raised by a jazz musician, father, and working odd jobs as a teenager, including caddying at a golf club. It was there, carrying heavy bags for wealthy men, that he first glimpsed the world of investing. Dalio bought his first stock at age 12 with money earned from sweat, not inheritance. The connection between effort and opportunity became the seed that later grew into Bridgewater. His rise was not preordained. It was engineered through trial, error, bankruptcy, rebuilding, humility, and obsessive study. He teaches that greatness is born in those who learn faster than misfortune can break them. Let us trace the footsteps of Leon Cooperman, a true American rags-to-riches titan. Born to immigrant parents in the Bronx, he supported himself through public school, then worked as a quality control engineer before clawing his way into Columbia Business School, and even then only with borrowed money and grit. From that humble starting point, he went on to become one of Wall Street's most legendary investors. Cooperman's story proves that elite finance is not impenetrable. It yields to those who combine intellect with relentless persistence. Then consider Ursula Burns, one of the most groundbreaking names in global business and finance. Raised in a New York housing project by a single mother who worked multiple jobs, Burns had no privilege, no silver spoon, no shortcuts. But she cultivated excellence through engineering, discipline, and a refusal to be defined by environment. She rose from intern to CEO of Xerox, the first Black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company, and later became a force in global finance and policymaking. Her path teaches that starting at the bottom does not limit destiny. It clarifies it. Now, observe Howard Schultz, whose childhood in Brooklyn's public housing shaped his ambition like pressure shapes diamonds. He watched his father's hardship after losing job security and vowed to build companies that treated people with dignity. That vow fueled his rise from a sales trainee to the architect of the Starbucks empire. Schultz's financial influence arises not from hedge funds, but from turning personal pain into corporate philosophy. He teaches that the self-made are powered not by wealth, but by wounds transformed into mission. Then let us examine Ken Langone, co-founder of Home Depot and one of Wall Street's most respected financiers. Born to a plumber and a cafeteria worker, Langone worked nights and weekends to pay for school. He was rejected constantly, doubted repeatedly, and underestimated perpetually. Yet he persevered, fueled by a stubborn belief that circumstances were invitations, not cages. His ascent shows that financial power grows from the courage to endure humiliation without surrendering ambition. We cannot forget Oprah Winfrey, whose financial empire rivals those of many hedge fund titans. Born into poverty, abused in youth, and dismissed by early employers, she rose into one of the wealthiest and most influential figures in media and finance. Her wealth was built through ownership, not fame, through strategic equity, production control, and business acumen. Her story teaches that self-made wealth is not limited to one industry. It is limited only by one's willingness to seize control of destiny. Look also at John Paulson, son of working-class immigrants, who built his hedge fund from nothing more than savings and persistence. His iconic short of the U.S. housing market became one of the greatest trades in financial history. Yet what people forget is the journey before that victory, years of obscurity, rejection, and minimal recognition. Paulson's story shows that even the greatest triumphs are rooted in long seasons of invisibility. Now study Harold Hamm, the 13th child of sharecroppers, who began working in oil fields at the lowest-rung cleaning rigs before rising to become one of America's greatest energy billionaires. His climb teaches that expertise grows from contact with the ground, not from distance above it. Patterns begin to emerge. My young apprentice patterns that whisper the true laws of self-made wealth. First, hardship is not a disadvantage. It is a sharpening stone. Those who begin with nothing develop instincts the privileged never need. Resourcefulness, hunger, resilience, adaptability. Second, self-made financial celebrities learn early that no one is coming to save them. This realization breeds a level of self-reliance that becomes the bedrock of future dominance. Third, education for them is not a gift, it is a weapon. They study not to earn degrees, but to escape circumstances. Fourth, they convert emotional pain into ambition. Schultz turned family hardship into corporate mission. Burns turned difficulty into excellence. Soros turned persecution into philosophical rigor. Fifth, they master asymmetric effort. While others sleep, they build. While others complain, they adapt. While others fear risk, they take calculated leaps. Sixth, they see opportunity where others see limitation. Dalio saw insight in failure. Langone saw possibility in rejection. Oprah saw empire in storytelling. But the most powerful truth is this: they began with nothing except the belief that nothing was unacceptable. They built their futures not because they had advantages, but because they refused to bow to the disadvantages placed before them. And now, as this scroll approaches its threshold, we prepare to step into the deeper revelations, how these self-made titans used scarcity to sharpen discipline, how early suffering engineered extraordinary decision-making, how resilience becomes capital more valuable than money, and how the journey from poverty to power ultimately shapes a mindset unlike any other, forging leaders who do not merely accumulate wealth but redefine the very meaning of it. And now, my young apprentice, let us continue into this second scroll, where the transformation from scarcity to sovereignty fully reveals its power. For when a financial celebrity begins life with nothing, they carry into adulthood a set of psychological assets no inheritance can provide. Poverty, in its raw and unforgiving form, teaches lessons elite business schools cannot simulate. It teaches urgency, not the shallow urgency of deadlines, but the deep urgency of survival. It teaches efficiency not as a productivity hack, but as a way of life. It teaches vision not as a luxury, but as an escape route. And as these individuals rise, these traits crystallize into a permanent advantage, enabling them to navigate chaos, downturns, and uncertainty with a calmness that astonishes those who never knew hunger. Consider George Soros once more. His early years taught him not to trust stability, because stability can collapse overnight. This gave him the instinct to sense macro cracks before others saw them. It trained his mind to understand that truth is fragile and systems can unravel suddenly, insight that became the backbone of his reflexivity theory. Those who grew up in comfort cannot easily comprehend this worldview. Only those shaped by instability possess it naturally. Reflect on Ray Dalio, whose early need to earn money through grit created an unusual relationship with effort. To him, work was never punishment. It was liberation. When he founded Bridgewater in a small apartment, he did not see modest beginnings as a setback. To someone who started with little, humility is not humiliation. It is simply the starting line. This allowed Dalio to rebuild from failure without shame, something the privileged often struggle to do. Look again at Leon Cooperman, who recognized that education is not optional but essential. Because he had nothing, he understood that knowledge was not merely a tool, it was leverage, the only form of capital he could generate without money. Thus, He became relentless in mastering his craft. The self-made do not learn casually. They learn as if life depends on it, because for them, it once did. Now, observe Ursula Burns, whose upbringing in a housing project taught her the discipline to survive in hostile environments. Her resilience became armor. Her precision became identity. When she entered corporate America, a world dominated by privilege, she did not conform. Poverty taught her to take nothing for granted, so when opportunity appeared, she gripped it with both hands and refused to release it. She rose because she understood that ascent requires not only intelligence, but the stubborn refusal to surrender momentum once it is gained. Consider Howard Schultz, whose childhood pain became his compass. Watching his father suffer the indignities of unstable work shaped Schultz's belief in fairness, benefits, and employer responsibility. His empire was built not merely to serve coffee, but to solve a wound. Poverty teaches empathy in a way wealth rarely can. And empathy, in business, becomes a strategic advantage, allowing you to build brands that resonate with millions. Then study Ken Langone, whose perpetual rejection became his superpower. When you grow up dismissed, underestimated, and doubted, you develop an indestructible tolerance for disappointment. Langone learned that no is not a verdict. It is simply a test of endurance. This is why, later in life, he could pursue deals others abandoned. The self-made learn early that persistence is not optional. It is destiny's price. Now consider Oprah Winfrey, whose experiences carved her emotional intelligence to a level few can match. Poverty often teaches the ability to read people because survival can depend on interpreting moods, intentions, and hidden dangers. Oprah transformed that intuitive sensitivity into a financial engine, turning connection into influence, influence into ownership, and ownership into generational wealth. Her rise embodies a truth the wealthy often overlook. The ability to understand humanity is as profitable as the ability to understand markets. And what of John Paulson? His anonymity in early years trained him in patience, teaching him that visibility is not required for destiny. When he saw the cracks forming in the housing market, he recognized them not because he was privileged, but because he had learned to see what others ignored. Poverty gives you eyes for the hidden, the overlooked, the fragile. And that skill became billions. My young apprentice, these stories reveal that scarcity produces not only pressure, but clarity. When your resources are limited, your decisions sharpen. You learn to distinguish necessity from distraction. You learn to ask the right questions. You learn to prioritize long-term escape over short-term comfort. This is why the self-made master disciplines the mind in ways the inherited wealth elite do not. They embrace austerity early, so abundance does not corrupt them later. They detach identity from possessions, so they remain grounded even as wealth multiplies. They cultivate gratitude, which protects them from entitlement and strengthens emotional resilience. They understand risk from the bottom up, not as theory, but as lived experience. And yet, there is another dimension to this ascent: how early struggle shapes their relationship with power. Those who began with nothing do not seek power for spectacle. They seek it for security, for stability, for the ability to ensure they never return to the vulnerability of their youth. Power becomes protection, not decoration. This makes their ambition deeper, quieter, and more durable than the ambition of those who chase luxury. But with this power comes a burden the self-made often carry an invisible weight: the fear of losing what they fought so hard to gain. This fear pushes them to stay vigilant, to keep learning, keep hustling, keep building. For them, success is not a destination. It is a duty. Now, my apprentice, let us examine something most people never notice. The self-made do not romanticize poverty. They respect it as a teacher, but they never wish to return to it. Their gratitude is not nostalgia, it is fuel. Their discipline is not rigidity, it is memory. And so, the final revelation emerges from the shadows of their stories. The greatest advantage in becoming self-made is not starting with nothing. It is becoming someone who can create anything. The journey from poverty to power is not about escaping scarcity, but about transforming the mind so completely that scarcity can never imprison it again. So now, young one, let the scroll close with an invitation. Share in the comments which self-made titan's journey resonates with your own heart. And if their stories awakened your drive, subscribe to this channel where every lesson sharpens the mind you will use to craft your own ascent from humble beginnings to extraordinary destiny.